Just need to make sure I mute this. So, alright. Just turn on your vision. Alright, good morning. Today I'm going to be following a game of Katarina versus Lux. I'm Weather from the Summoner School Discord, and this is a VOD review. So like always, I start games with win conditions. Win conditions are important to consider. It changes the way you should be dividing your focus and what things you can do to help your team win the game. It gives you a strategy, and you need to be thinking about this early. A lot of the times, people don't know how to close out games, and the biggest reason people don't know how to close out games is they don't know where their strengths are. So they'll be saying group is 5 when sometimes your 5 is worse than theirs. That's just a small example, but it's something you should consider. So right now, looking at your team comp, you have a Garen who has a pretty good lane, and he's very kiteable late game. If he gets the right flank off or has the right amount of CC to help him engage, he still has a pretty okay team fight too. But he relies a lot on someone else setting up a fight for him. If he just runs in at them, there's a very high chance he's going to get peeled off. Rengar is a type of champion that wants to look for someone who's alone. The best way you set people up to make sure that they're alone is by properly doing your rotations. If you set someone up in a side lane, and then the Darius goes to match, right? All of a sudden, the Rengar can show up out of nowhere, and it's a 2v1. They get the kill, and the rest of the team for the enemy is still stacked on a different turret. So then the two of them, the Garen and the Rengar in this context, could take a turret. That's kind of one of the plays that the Rengar wants to be looking for. Katarina has really strong kind of mid game, but her late game gets really challenging. The more fed you are, the more people actually look to shut you down. So her late game is pretty difficult, and she really relies on entering the fight at the right time. But what this means is you have 3 people that all rely on entering the fight at the right time. No one really wants to go in early, and if the Garen's just running at them, he's going to get peeled off. As simple as that. He can't. He can't just run at them. So your whole team fight relies on your thresh hook. Your entire team fight relies on your thresh hook. Or a flash. You could always flash Flay, you could always flash Q as Garen or something like that. Yeah, you could still flash engage on them. But that's not something that's very reliable even still, because if the Garen uses his flash to get in there, how is he going to stick to them? They'll just flash away. That's not really a very reliable engage. That's a reliable follow-up, but not an engage. So what this means is your team really needs to be playing around these rotations. Luckily, you have a shitload of wave clear for pushing and setting up for these rotations. You don't have very good anti-siege, but you do have the ability to catch them super easily. If they send 4 people to this turret, all of you can get on from behind them, which is exactly what you want. They're not going to be able to kite into your turret, so this is an easy way for you to set up. You're not going to be able to just sit under your turret if they start sieging, but you can very easily send people behind them and break their siege. And you have, as I said, like between the Tristana and the Garen and the Katarina, a ton of wave control. So you should be able to set up for these rotations really easily, where then you would be able to pick better fights than just relying on your Thresh Hook. So their team is going to be really reliant on picks in a kind of similar fashion to yours, but has a lot more setup for it. I was talking about how you only have your Thresh engage, and Rengar's only going to go in when people are alone, right? Well, on their team, the Kha'Zix is only going to go in when people are alone, but they still have the Braum Q who could catch someone out, the Lux Q who could catch someone else out, and the Darius E. They have 3 forms of engage, not counting any sort of flash engages. Plus, they have the Sivir ult to chase people down. What this means is their team is a lot better at team fighting. A lot better. They have the ability to set up the fights that they want, and they are able to stick to those fights. And damage-wise, if you're comparable. But if they get the first strike off on the right person, they're going to just flat out win. So you really need to be playing towards your rotations. That's strictly this team. But because of the Kha'Zix, you're going to have to definitely pay attention to where you're rotating. You need solid vision because a Kha'Zix could be waiting here and kill you. For your specific lane, a Lux has a lot of poke. I would be starting Doran's Shield in this matchup just to try and be able to get to 6. After that, or even at starting at level 2, if you're able to dodge one of her abilities and go in with E, you'll be able to start trading some damage pretty nicely. The problem is you need to make sure you can sustain to make those trades. She's going to be able to poke you down pretty easily and pretty consistently. But if you can survive her poke and still go in, you're going to be able to definitely win this matchup. Lux is not good into Katarina. Alright, without further ado, into the review. I do not like your starting items in this case. I did comment earlier that the Doran Shield would help you sustain. A long sword is if you think you're going to be able to get the extra autos off. A long sword is good into a matchup like a Yasuo, where you can wind wall your Q and you still want to be able to trade on him. A long sword is good. And if you're trying to do this so you can rush your Gunblade, think about the extra minions and the extra experience and the stuff that you could lose out on by going this start. You start 300 extra effective health, but a lot less regen, and about the same minion killing potential, and this isn't going to add too much to your kill potential right now either on a Lux, because you're going to get maybe 3 autos off and you're all in. In a Yasuo matchup, you'd probably get off like 6. And if you would have started something like the ring, right? The ring would have scaled better because you would have at least been able to start refillable, and that way your next recall you would have a better back, and you would have more damage for your poking with the ring. Not Doran's ring, but the whatever the other thing is, the Magi's item. So I'm not a fan of your starting items, and I don't normally talk about starting items, but I think that it's really important on champions that rely on getting to 6. So Akali has the same problem. Starting item is very important. If you greed and you go for this, you're very likely going to have to back at a wrong time or improper time. And not only could that set you behind, but that could let them invade, that could let them freely roam, that could let them do a lot. You give up not only your level advantage, you don't give up not only minions, but you give up all the map pressure you could have had. All of it. I really appreciate you standing here and providing vision, though. This is a very good habit. Okay, let me actually watch this. Level 1's really important, and I want to talk about the way that this kind of plays, depending upon how it plays. Okay. Alright. So, you definitely have problems with your level 1. And your problem is with knowing how to trade damage. So, for starters, in this matchup, if you really wanted to try and, like, I don't know, be a bitch to them, right? You could have even started E. I'm not saying to start E. I'm not saying to do that. But that would have let you at least dodge the Lux, like, E, right? If you E'd, you could have dodged the Lux E. And you took a huge chunk of damage without doing anything to trade because of your positioning. Like, do you see what you end up doing here? You accept the E by your positioning because, for starters, you're in the wave. Whenever you're playing against someone like Lux, she's always going to want to push, and she wants to hit you with ability. She's going to try and do both. If you want to play into something like a Lux, the best thing you can do is force her to make a decision. Does she want to hit the minions or you? Right? Then if she hits you, you just shove the wave, and then she has trouble under tower. She starts using her mana to do just normal CSing, and then she can't poke you that way. So your first way is to beat her by shoving and making her decide if she hits you or minions. This is a better strategy if you have more sustain, so that way she can hit you and you can still survive it. The second strategy is to make sure that you dodge this. If you predict where it's going to be, and like her range, right? Her range is something that's really hard to beat. But you could trade damage back to make it so that it's not just a free disadvantage. Right here, you're walking up, you walk back, and do you see how far that was? Like, the range was way over here. So you aren't going to walk out of that. a lot of different times, the best way you can dodge skill shots like a Lux or something is actually walking into them. I'm not telling you to do that here, but you accepted the damage by your positioning in the wave. That you just flat out accepted it. And then you give up the level 2, right? Give up the level 2 priority because of what happens here. Do you see how you play this part out? You don't want her to get this auto attack off, right? But then you go and you give it to her. So all of this so far, you've taken like 100 damage. How much damage? Yeah, just about 100 damage from nothing. You haven't traded any damage. You haven't even autoed a minion. And it's just your positioning in the wave. Level 1, no one really has kill potential, and you need to either trade back onto them, or just, well, you could also concede the minions, or you could try and push. If you're doing what you're doing and you're conceding the minions, there's no reason to be walking up to begin with. There's no reason to be standing here to begin with, because you just take more damage. And then even more damage. Yeah, you really don't know how to position in a wave. Because if you're just waiting for these minions, which is what you're doing, right? Why did you need to be standing here? What are you doing? Are you autoing the minions? Are you autoing these? Are you trading damage with your Q? Are you autoing this one? Are you trading damage with your Q? Do you see this entire lane? Do you see your health now? 200 health down. You haven't autoed a minion. You haven't queued the wave. You haven't queued the Lux. You haven't done anything. And if you're going to concede it like this, you didn't even fucking miss out on experience to wait for it. So you're very impatient with the way you position in the wave. You're very disrespectful with the way you position in the wave, giving her both the poke and the push. And you don't even attempt to play aggressive at level 1. Now, I know they changed the aggro recently, so it would be a lot more challenging to play aggressive here because you would get minion aggro. But you could at least be pushing, or you could at least avoid some of this damage. I personally would have traded onto her level 1. And you're going to take some more damage here. Oh, no, you back off. Do you see what... See, she can't hit you if you're over there. So this is good patience. Do you see how you wait over here and you don't miss anything? You didn't do that at all on level 1. That was a really greedy E. That's really awkward. But yeah, that was a greedy E because you didn't even... You ruined all of those CS that you could have gotten and you still took the hit. You're not looking for windows to trade at all. Lux's E, whenever it's down, and Lux maxes E in lane, whenever she's mid, she maxes E. That is probably half her damage. And at this point in the game, okay, that is literally half her damage. She just used half of her damage, and look at your cooldowns. You have all of your abilities, and you don't even try to go in. So you don't have any aggression in lane. None at all. None at all. You don't try to trade, and I think it's because you feel that you'll lose. Well, then, if you think you're going to lose, you're not thinking about windows to trade because you're not watching their abilities, because Lux just used her 100 damage, right? That 100 damage was on the ground already. Your Q does 75, your W does something like around 75, your E does something around like 60. You E onto her, you get off one of those daggers, and then you E back or E to chase. You probably got her to half health for your half health. But half health on the Lux means that you can kill her. Half health on you means that you play like a bitch, which is what you're already doing. See? Yes. Do you see how easy this was? Do you see how easy that was? And you could have done that at any point after level 3. At any point once you were watching for a window. And really, I think you were only going to CS, and then you just so happened to put down a good dagger. Yeah, you just queued the wave to CS, and just so happened that there was a good dagger there. Yeah. See how easy this is? You didn't really have, well, it's not that you had a disadvantage there, but that just proves that you could kill them at any point, pretty much, right? And you just were ignoring all of your windows up until here. Because look at how low you were going into this. And she missed everything. See, there's her Q that she missed. There's her E that she missed. And then she disrespects you with the way that she flashes. And she doesn't time her barrier. She misplayed that fight a lot. What if she hit her Q there? If she hit her Q there, you would have been chunked to about half of this. She got her auto off for free because you would have been stunned. You would have also been in the minion wave, which means the minions would have been attacking you. She would have been able to E you, which would have meant she got her passive again. You would have died. So you're not looking for windows to go in. You're not paying attention to windows. However, that was a good time to go in just because of the nature of this matchup. You should win this matchup. As long as you can sustain it, you should win this matchup. But you're not looking for these windows because you really didn't have an advantage to go in there except for a well-placed dagger, and I don't even think you did that intentionally. You just saw it after you were CSing. Yeah. Now, as Katarina, I don't think it's greedy to stay for a wave like this. It is greedy if you use your E while staying for a wave like that. Just make sure you never E whenever you're pushing that greedy, like that extra last wave. And as Katarina, it's because most of the time you can just E out. W and E to get out. And Kha'Zix was looking for a gank, so he could have showed up mid, and he could have showed up mid right whenever you had no minions left, and just E'd there, right? You could have died. Because you didn't have flash, didn't have ignite, didn't have E. Never use your E whenever you're doing a greedy push like this. Um, but as I said, Katarina can stay for those. You just can't use your E. Okay. So, you're not... There's a few things that are happening here. Um, if you're looking for this kill, which you definitely can be looking for this kill at this point, you do not have good vision for this. Your ward over here, this is a really bad ward for wanting an aggressive play. This is the type of ward where you expect someone to be like diving you, right? This is the type of ward where you're pushed under turret and not going to do anything. That's the only time you want a ward like this, or you want this pinked to prevent them from doing it. The pinking of these bushes is only in aggressive pink. This is not a defensive pink, it's an aggressive pink. That's the only time you pink these. Now, what your ward shows me is that you're not tracking the enemy jungler, you're not thinking about what you want to do with the wave. All you do is say, I'm about to push, I should ward. Right? That's all this ward shows me. So, if I was the enemy jungler right now, where did you last see him, right? You last saw him when he was level 4 and he was up here after your last recall. That was when you last saw him. Well, let's see how far back that is. Right here, see? Here's your Kha'Zix. So what does that mean? You just see the Kha'Zix up here and he's level 4. It's really important to track the enemy jungler. If he's level 4, that means he's cleared pretty much his entire jungle. it takes like 5 camps to get level 4. And if he does that, then he's not going to have anything else on the top side of the map for a while. He's going to have to base and go bottom. And since you're not here to gank mid, he's not going to stay to gank mid. This is just seeing what level he is and knowing where he was last. So at 4.5 minutes, normally, this is also kind of just tracking by the clock, the enemy jungler is bottom. Regardless of where you last saw them, they're usually bottom. If they're doing a standard clear, they're usually bottom. So your ward over there not only is not tracking the enemy jungler, not only is it not a good offensive ward to set up a dive, but it's a waste of a resource. Because then you didn't have a ward to put where it mattered. Right? Right around here, Kha'Zix is probably moving towards... Okay, is he going to be moving towards bottom? Ooh, maybe I'm wrong. Okay, no, I'm not. I'm right. But I'm a little bit late with the clock. This is still before you even put down your ward, by the way. You still haven't put down your ward. Now you put down your ward. Do you see this? This isn't going to spot him. This isn't going to help you with a dive either. This ward is useless. It's a wasted resource. It's useless. And what should you have done? Well, at this point, you didn't know that you were going to be getting this kill, or you didn't know you were going to be pushing her in. Probably. Because she gave you a lot of free damage. She disrespected your daggers more than once. And then she tanks the minions. Oh, that's the biggest part. But if you're looking for this play, I would be looking toward somewhere over here. Because where I imagine the Kha'Zix is going to come from is, at this point, I would have expected him to do Gromp, Wolves, be looking to gank mid or bot, and then go back for blue. That's what I would have expected. So I would have been looking toward this because his gank route is coming from Wolves. Now, of course, I would have been wrong in this context because he did Wolves earlier and then based and then is going bottom for Gromp. But this is just my prediction, and I'm trying to explain how I would have used my resource. It also is a more aggressive ward where you could potentially catch him out in his own jungle just doing his pathing, right? What if he walked from here to blue or blue to Raptors, right? You would catch him out on this kind of ward. Sometimes. But this ward's not going to see jack shit. It's already almost dead, half dead. It's not going to see anything. But that would also help you set up for a dive a little bit better. Ideally, you would get it even further back, like over here, but that's kind of a waste of time to put it all the way over here with the way you'd have to walk and stuff. I don't, yeah, you don't, okay. Here you are. See, look where the Kha'Zix is. Bottom side of your map. You also don't manage your waves very well for both kills or roams. So if you're looking for a kill here, right, you want her to kind of push in. Or you want to be ready to dive her and be trading damage onto her. You're just shoving the wave. If you're just shoving the wave, then you're going to want to roam after this. But you don't. You just sit in your wave. See? You just wait. Or are you basing? Yeah, you just wait. This is a complete waste of time. You had a window here to do anything, and that is your perfect window to make an impact on the map. So a lot of people say jungle has the most impact on the map. I don't think jungle has the most impact on the map. I think mid does. Because if you manage a wave correctly, that means every wave you can decide whether or not you're going to stay mid and look for a kill, whether or not you're going to roam top, whether or not you're going to roam bottom, or whether or not you're going to invade. While a jungle, if they're pathing correctly, they're forced to be on one side of the map at specific times. So for example, these bottom camps just spawned, so junglers should be bottom. Your Rengar's really trying to do something top right now, and it's probably not going to amount to anything, but he's trying this, and this is a cheese play. A standard jungler would be forced to be bottom. That means that after this, his only options are mid or bottom. Plus, he's forced to be in his own jungle right now, which means he can't even do an invade at this second because he's doing his camp. Mid could look for the blue buff, could look for the bottom gank, could look for the top gank, could look for the mid dive. Mid has the most impact on the map. Jungle requires the most amount of thinking. Jungle requires the most amount of thinking because it relies the most on, making proactive plays, predicting where other people are going to be, adapting your route to make it so you're at the right place at the right time, investing your resources in the correct lane, and stuff like that. So a jungle, you could be a jungle and not think at all and just farm, but you're going to see a huge difference between that jungle and one that has a lot of pathing and a lot of ganks and stuff. You're going to see a huge difference. Mid, if you just clear waves, you'll have the same amount of impact as someone who just clears waves. So right now, you're having the same amount of impact and you're scaling the same. You may have a kill, right? You may have a kill, but that doesn't prevent her from getting a kill in the future. It doesn't prevent her from doing what she wants to do. Your CSing needs a lot of work. Okay, and that weird E. Your Katarina mechanics as a whole need work when it comes to CSing, when wave management, and harassing. You waste a lot of time over there. You take a really aggressive route back. You die. Oh, you don't die. Let's see how they misplayed that. Oh, it's because Kazakhs. Or was it Kazakhs? Okay, so it's Lux not having her E. I don't know. She ran out of mana. Okay. Okay. Lux ran out of mana there. That's how you won that. Lux E would have killed you there, and instead you ended up getting 2 kills. So that was very lucky, because you weren't doing anything to force her to run out of mana. You wait in base for a while. I imagine that's because you had an important item, maybe. Okay. And then you try a top lane gank. Let's see this. You don't ping your ganks, which is a huge problem. If you don't ping your ganks, you cannot expect anyone to go in. Um, and he knew you were there. The Darius did, so the Darius was already walking away. You had to ping that pretty early. Um, it was still a good attempt, and it was a good window to go and roam. You just need to make sure you ping it. Really important. You really like this ward. This is a bad ward. Instead of warding here, if you're wanting to track the jungler on the top side, which I would have expected him to be on the top side of the map there, honestly, you want to ward up here. You want to ward where you can catch him before he even gets to those bushes. Because by the time he's here, he can already gank you most of the time. Because he relies on the Lux Q anyways, right? This isn't going to help you. You need one over here. What if he jumped this way? Kha'Zix jumped over the wall like this. Your warding is pretty abysmal with using these. There wasn't really a reason for you to try and go bottom here. Imagine you're just trying to use your time. Alright. So I was talking about how important it is for Katarina to enter the fights at the right time, right? This is a terrible window to go into this fight. They're all full health. They all have all of their CC still. You get a lot more out of that than you should have because they don't have a whole lot of CC. But Braum was 6, and you didn't know that he did not have ultimate. So he could have ulted your ult, which would have changed that fight quite drastically. Also, you really need to look at my Dragon Rant video. I'll show that to you after this. I really don't think dragons are worth dying for. You could have chosen a better time to enter that fight. You probably could have cleaned up all of these kills. Well, I guess Tristana did, but it could have been you. And your bot lane is doing really well this game. I don't think that play was worth it. Whenever you think about a dive like that, you need to be thinking about what you can get afterwards. The only point of a kill is what you can get afterwards. Going in here and dying for a kill that she was going to base for means you can't get anything. While really, if you had just let her recall and then hit this turret, you probably would have gotten this turret to like 20% life or less. But because of this, and you would have still denied her a wave of minions, because of this, you give her a kill for a kill and prevent you from doing anything whenever she was handing you map control. Whenever someone's baiting a recall like this, she isn't even baiting this, you just took a really aggressive dive to do this. Just let them recall. There's no reason to chase these kills. Kills mean nothing. Kills, the point of them, is so you can get an objective afterwards, uncontested. And you could just have gotten a lot of damage on this uncontested, because she wouldn't have been there. I don't know why you stop autoing for a little bit there. Yeah. So, do you know you have a ward? You have 2 wards, in fact. You see this happen down here. You see them walk up topside. Your team pings missing. You ward this bush again, and then you die. Do you see what I'm talking about? Has this ward spotted out anyone this entire game? Anyone? This isn't a defensive ward. This is the equivalent of boosting your ward stats by warding spawn. Because this hasn't seen jack shit. You're not watching where people are. Why are you going up here? So you waste a lot of time, too. There we go. Your Thresh got a lot of good hooks there. Good. Okay. You walk back to base because you forgot something? That's really awkward. Yeah, this is honestly standard low rating team fights. And I'm not just talking about the team fight itself, but the just desire to team fight. It's unnecessary because there's no objective that you're contesting over here or defending over here. There's no turret here. There's no turret here. There's no turret here. The minion waves are fine. There's no reason to have this team fight. No reason at all. So once this team fight starts, and you see people showing up for it, right? You should be really hesitant to go into this because you just saw two people walk over, and you see two people over here. You know your bot lane's strong, but you also know Tristana's in a very bad position right now. So Tristana's probably going to die. At this point, I would recognize this fight as over, and I'd be trying to get something else. Because Tristana's in a terrible spot. You have Darius and Lux somewhere over here, right? Right here. And even if you show up for this fight, it's going to be a 2v4. Because Tristana's going to be dead. They decided to take this fight, and you're not going to get anything even if you win it. Because there's no turret mid, there's no dragon, and there's no turret bot. There's no victory to this fight. Only kills. Only kills. And when there's only kills, you don't have to be there. If you push this wave in, this does a couple of different things. It either gets you some turret damage, which is important, or it draws the Lux and the Darius back to this lane. And if it draws the Lux and the Darius back to this lane, then they can win this fight. If they go like in a standard low elo play and they chase down this fight and chase the Thresh down here afterwards, you've just killed half of this turret and they can't get anything with the way the waves are. But instead, you show up to this fight, and like I said, Tristana's dead. You then target the Sivir, right? You go way over here for the Sivir, making it a 1v1, which isn't that bad for you, right? But look what happens on this side of the fight. And then you decide to take the 3v1. That's a mechanical misplay. This is a fight you really did want to show up for, because if you killed them here, you could have gotten Baron. Sivir's bottom. It's going to take her a little while to shove into this. But if you kill them and then you do this, Baron, you're trading the Baron and 2 kills for 1 turret. That's all it is, 1 turret down here. And this is a very reasonable fight for you to show up for because you can get something. And instead you recall there for a Ether Wisp. That's not worth it. And your team does this fight without you. And your team wins it without you. which you can't rely on. That was a really good fight for you to show up for. Your playstyle does nothing to shut down your own lane. So whenever you don't show up for fights like this, you're putting your team at a disadvantage whenever you need to be there. And again, what's the difference between the fight that happened over here, the fight that happens here? There are a few differences. The biggest one is what could you get and what could they get? Baron, nothing. Second thing is how many people are there. There were 4 for their team, and there were 2 for your team at the start of this fight because Tristana was dead. And there were 2 for their team, and there could have been 5 for your team up here. So you had a numbers advantage and something to get. Your Katarina mechanics need work. You have some pretty good rotations, though. Like, all things considered, you are still trying to get turrets, which is very important. There's no reason to be standing this far away. You need to be showing up for the fight sooner. So you end up having to flash this wall because there's nothing there. And yeah, the game's over here. Because after this, you should be able to get Baron and win the game. You still should be able to get Baron here, but I guess you guys are not going to do that, huh? I guess it's not over. You do have a significant gold lead, though. You try and 1v1 a Darius. Okay, so here's over. Alright, going to highlight a couple of things that you really need to work on. For starters, your level 1 needs a good amount of work. You don't trade damage, and you don't respect damage. You end up taking 200 damage at level 1, and that's unnecessary, and you trade nothing for it. You don't even fucking auto the minion wave. That means you have no aggression and no respect at the same time. So you're not giving them any reason to respect you. And your kill that you got, a lot of them was from the enemy misplaying or missing something. As I pointed out on your first kill, you had no advantage when you went in, and you still won because they missed everything. It looks like they had like 300 ping. Whenever you're playing a matchup like this, you have so much potential to win this matchup, and all you need to do is start watching for when they use their skills. When they use their skills, you need to trade damage on them, or you need to not be there. In the case of this lane, even if you had started E just to dodge her E, would have been better than what you did. Your starting item was also something that I didn't really like, especially the way that you play this lane out. You end up eating so much damage that really you didn't need to. I would not have started Longsword, and I don't think you should start Longsword in many of your games. I really do think you should be prioritizing something like Doran Shield just because of the way that you seem to be playing your lanes. You don't roam very well. You had one roam, which was to go topside, and you didn't ping it. You had plenty of opportunities to go bottom. Just looking at the scoreboard, right? Tristana has 10 kills. That means they were shitting on bottom, and you could have come and taken a piece of this pie. But you didn't, so, you know, it's a missed opportunity. You also show up for fights without really evaluating them. That's both the fight in their jungle on this side and also the dive on the dragon. The dragon fight was completely unnecessary and a bad play by you. They should have been able to kill you there before you got anything. And it's because you showed up too early. You don't know when to enter a fight as Katarina. You talk about how you don't have a difficult time closing out games. Well, if this is how you team fight, no shit. Your team fights, you show up for ones that you are not that are lost, and you enter too early on ones that you have a lot of potential in. You also ignore fights where you have a shitload to gain. Your wards are worthless, and you need to reevaluate where you put your wards by tracking people. You had no awareness on whenever the two of them were coming up through the bottom side of your jungle. You warded this only this entire game. This is all where you put your wards, pretty much. You only warded this. And this isn't even a good ward. This is an aggressive pink ward location. Or a defensive, they're going to dive me location. This is the type of ward you do against a Sejuani, where the Sejuani can then Q you and slow you and stuff like that. But it's not the type of ward you ever should need to do against the Kha'Zix. You ward over here. You ward over here. You have no Baron focus, and your rotations are mediocre. You did go bottom to stop the Sivir, but you only went bottom to stop the Sivir after a better play opportunity presented itself, and you did not show up for this rotation. So that's why I'm saying at least you're not just A-ramming, but you're not looking for the correct windows. Like, there are better opportunities. Your Katarina mechanics need a little bit of work. And by a little bit, I mean, like, you not like spend time in the practice tool, but stuff like trading damage on them with your Q. You only go in on your daggers. That's the only time I've ever seen you trade onto them, whenever you already have a dagger placed there. And yeah, that makes sense. But if it's a Lux and she just missed her E, that's her damage. And that's your window to go in. And you're not looking for these windows. You're just relying on having more damage than them. Which isn't the case most of the time. Because they can walk away from this. If they stun you or something, they can walk away from this. If you're playing against a Yasuo or something, they can still do a shitload of damage to you. You don't buy a pink ward at all this entire game, and you should have. Pink wards are something that contribute greatly to the overall chances of winning. In your best game, you have 5 pink wards on the map. 1 from every person on your team. But you only have 1. And you want to do something else? Let's look at this map, right? You only have a total of 3 wards on this map. Look at your inventories. Right? In lower elo especially, it's important for you to understand vision control so you can contribute the most to these plays. Vision control, the way you are doing it, is just to put stats on the board saying that you warded. If this had a stat of showing you how many times it was useful, your ward stat would be 0. And your pink ward, you just didn't put it down at all because you didn't buy one. A pink ward right here or a pink ward right here would have done wonders for your team. This pink ward probably didn't see shit this entire game. If this is yours, then this is another problem place to put a pink ward. It's just way too defensive. In a game that you have a 10k gold lead, there should be no reason to put it this far back. Your team fight targeting, whenever you went on the Sivir, she still had flash and you didn't know that. But then after you chased it, you were guaranteed to lose this fight. But it was a bad fight to show up for anyways. Your overall build is okay. I see a lot of the times Liandry's instead of going Zhonya's as your like second item, right? You go Hextech into Liandry's and then Zhonya's. I think that would be better for your playstyle. I also don't think you should be looking into getting the Ludens at all. Ludens is not a very good item for the stats that you need. It does give you more burst, but if you enter the fight at the right time, you shouldn't need that extra bit of burst. And you could contribute a lot more with the tank stats that Leandries provides and the tank shred. Like you win on the Darius and you know you didn't win that fight because partially your build, partially the champions just by themselves, he has an advantage. But the Leandries would help a lot more than Zhonya's in that matchup. Zhonya's is something that would help you a lot against Lux, but Lux wasn't really your problem. She missed everything. Uh, CSing needs a little bit of work, especially when it comes to using your abilities. You burn a lot of CS with your abilities without getting them. Like that time you eat over here and I told you it was greedy. Um, yeah. And if you look at the vision on the enemy team, like right, they have all of their trinkets still. That they've given up on this game. They've given up on this game for a long time. You definitely need to work on your level 1 aggression though. Alright. Well, I'm not sure how helpful this is going to be. You have a lot of laning problems, and you rely on just doing more damage. You don't roam. You don't have correct objective control. Your rotations are mediocre, and you don't recognize where enemy players are. If you start to recognize where enemy players are and work on your laning aggression, you will see a lot better games. Part of the reason why you probably play so safe is you're used to getting ganked. You're probably used to getting level 3 ganked, which is why you always put this ward down because it might have saved you before, or maybe you're used to getting ganked on this specific side because, of course, they do red and then come and kill you. But you could ward better. You could play smarter, and you could definitely play aggressive at level 1 and 2 because they're not going to level 2 gank you. Alright, well, anyways, that's the end of this review. Hope some of that's helpful. Stop streaming.